real terms to its 1979 level, which still isn't enough. Using today's money adjusted for inflation, instead of a $7.25 an hour minimum wage, would be more like $10.55 an hour. Over the years, the minimum wage has not kept pace with inflation, the increase in the costs of goods and services over the time, which means today's workers aren't getting as much bang for their buck. And if it hasn't kept up with inflation, the minimum wage really hasn't kept up with productivity. That is, how much value each worker produces for his or her boss per hour.
If we started in 1960 and we said that as productivity goes up, that is, as workers are producing more, then the minimum wage is going to go up the same. And if that were the case, the minimum wage today would be about $22 an hour. So my question, Mr. Dubé, with a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, is what happened to the other $14.75? It sure didn't go to the worker.
And it should go to the worker, not just for the benefit of that worker, but in order to produce a stable, vibrant middle-class economy and democracy. It is that simple. You want to start attacking inequality and plutocracy and post-recession wage stagnation, then raise the wage. Joining me now is Senator Bernie Sanders, independent from Vermont. He's a member of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. Senator, why can't we get a reasonable minimum wage? What is stopping us from getting a $10 minimum wage? Lay it out for me.
Let me tell you something. I don't want to break the bad news to you. A majority of Republicans are not only opposed to raising the minimum wage, a majority of the Republicans right now believe we should abolish the concept of the minimum wage. And if in a city like Detroit or other high unemployment areas, you can get people to work $3, $4, $5 an hour, that would be acceptable to them. So what you got is arrayed against us a lot of big money interest, a lot of Republicans who do not believe in quote-unquote government regulation, which means a minimum wage. And that's the problem that we have.
When you talk about big money, I mean, when you're trying, and you've been working on this issue. I know you support this legislation. You've been working on raising the minimum wage. Who is on the other side of the fight? Because this is an intensely lobbied bill in Congress when it does happen. Who is sitting across the table from the Bernie Sanders of the world saying, please, do not raise this when that fight happens?
Well, companies like Walmart, the Walmart family. Here's an amazing story. The Walmart family is the wealthiest family in this country, worth about $100 billion, owning more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. And yet here's the incredible fact. Because their wages and benefits are so low, they are the major welfare recipients in America because many, many of their workers depend on Medicaid, depend on food stamps, depend on government subsidies for housing. So if the minimum wage went up for Walmart, it would be a real cut in their profits, but it would be a real savings, by the way, for taxpayers who would not have to subsidize Walmart employees because of their low wages.
What do you say to people that will look at this and they'll say, this is cynical posturing, this is populism, and if you do this, it's just basic economics, you raise the wage, you constrain labor, and you end up putting people out of work?
Well, I would say come to the great state of Vermont. We have the fourth lowest unemployment rate in the country. I think it's about 4.4%. We have the third highest minimum wage rate, not as high as it should be, but it's $8.60 an hour. I have not heard too many employers in the state of Vermont are telling me that the minimum wage is too high and should go lower.
Bernie Sanders, independent senator of Vermont, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll hear from